quick note as we start that I've recently expanded my coaching offerings to try something new. So there's still the usual one-on-one stuff, but also I've added offline game analysis, meaning if you played over the board games or something and you want a strong player to take a look at your games, that's also something I'm very happy to help out with. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, feel free to DM me at ThePolarSage on Lichess and we can talk about that. Let's get into our 5+5 game. (1948) as white, alright. And back to the Sicilian. Okay, so knight of 3 first. And then bishop to b5 is our feature move. And then adding e6, okay. Well, we know our rule is castle and then play c3 and d4. e6 suggests they might want to play d5, and then this will turn towards one of our French positions again. Or they will play knight to d4. Okay, that's kind of unusual. I don't think we talk about that anywhere. But I don't think we can play bishop a4 because of b5 and c4, so are we just taking that right away? I would guess so. And then try to play against that pawn on d4. Do we ever play c3? Maybe. I think we'll for sure take that. Then yeah, just the question here. I kind of like c3. It seems like it does friendlier things to the white pawn structure than black's, because otherwise it feels like maybe there's a challenge developing our queenside pieces, like the knight especially, and that they could eventually get pressure on the C file. So let's try this and see. Yeah, and I was aware of a side effect that maybe the bishop comes into C2, although I don't know if I want to give them a tempo for B5. But if I do ultimately want to play D4, I don't really love bishop D3, so I might be abandoning that idea unless I go back all the way to E2. Which I think I should probably do. I don't want to have a bishop sitting here if I'm still trying to develop this knight and this bishop. Okay, so I don't mind something with d3 and then taking and playing a future bishop e3. I think if we go takes, queen takes, this is always going to be a move, so I don't mind starting with that. Pawn, I don't think changes a lot, because I don't feel like they should be playing pawn takes if I'm taking on d4. So it doesn't seem like a very useful move to me. And I don't think bishop e3 right away and let them take on b2, but there's no reason we can't start with the knight. And if this is a backwards pawn on d3, they also have one on d7, and I felt like once we get in bishop e3, I should also be able to play d4 quite easily. Queen b4 attacks here, which might slow it down. Rook b1, even queen b3. If I'm thinking rook b1, could there be bishop c5? Does that make things harder with getting in this pawn push? I do think it's a move I would like to get in for sure. d4. Could consider a3. They take, play knight a4, has to go back to b5, knight b6. Looks quite strong positionally. I think I like that maybe better than just protecting the pawn on b2. I haven't been seeing things very well tactically this week, but fingers crossed. At the moment I do feel clearer. Yes, we are sacking that pawn, but we're ready with this. They are still over 5 minutes, which, however bad my own time management habits are, I don't think being over 5 minutes on move 15 usually is, unless they were somehow in theory, but I don't think that can possibly be the case. And then queen b5, yeah, I don't think I play d4. Or maybe I can because their queen doesn't have good squares. So my queen protects my knight. So we can chase their queen around a bit, get in d4, d5 could be useful, but the downside of that is it will weaken the pawn on e4. I think if we play knight b6, we'll still have good opportunities to chase the queen around after this rook moves, or possibly even just like rook c1 or queen c2, and this bishop on c8 could be a very large problem for them. So I assume rook b8, yeah, and then I think not the queen because of queen c6, but if we play rook c1, do they have to play king d8? And then a4, and then we're actually really close to trapping that queen. I don't think we can bring the bishop back, unfortunately, because we lose track of the knight. But we could also start rook b1, because if they play queen c6, then there's rook c1. And if they go queen a5, can we play bishop d2 there? Or do they come back to c5? That's hard to track. Rook b1 or rook c1 then? Or a4? Too many candidate moves. Okay, what about... what's my move order? I'm trying to trick them into a queen a5 and a king d8, so there's some bishop b6 fork, but I'm not sure I can force it. I would need a couple more minutes to be able to figure that out perfectly. I think this is the quote-unquote safest first move, because if they have to play king d8, that's a permanent accomplishment. And whatever else happens, that's always a big thing. But I like the vibe of rook b1, I think. Unless I want to play a4. Which way, a1 or a4? No, you know what? I think I do like a4. If they play queen a5, I'm thinking queen b3 is a really supportive move. Maybe we even take on f7. And I think overall, like, this has to be really good for white. It's just whether I can be smooth about showing it. So I think queen b4 might actually be a better move for them. And then do I go rook b1 then? Queen has a couple more squares, unfortunately, but yeah, they do that. I don't think there's a real benefit to taking on c8. There could be, though. Like, if we take a couple times, play queen c2, king moves, then the other rook could come to b1. I'm not sure. I'm a little reluctant to give the tension this early, but I've been enjoying it too much and letting my time run, so let's go for this. We'll get in this rook b1. I think that's probably correct for their king. Do we ever go rook c1? No, probably just bishop d6 then. So I think we will start here, and then how are we going to continue or finish this? I could play d4. That could open up bishop takes a6, unless they play queen d6, or queen a5, I guess. Although this should be a blunder, because we get to attack the queen and threaten a big mate with queen c7, or actually I think we trap their queen now. So all of that comes together at once. If they could teleport their queen to a safe square, queen c7, then queen c8 is mate. But I realized that I don't think there is a safe square, and they can't counterattack the queen. I don't see anything confounding that they can do. I think they're just losing the queen. And they seem to agree. Okay, well, we'll take that. So coming back to the start then. So we got an early deviation. I don't know how many players will play this knight to d4. I mean, we look at this from the black side, certainly, when we play the Sicilian. So it's definitely a possible move, but I don't feel like it should go well. Then as far as how I played against it, what do I think? There might be something more accurate, but I don't really regret anything up to here. I think this a3 is interesting and should be justifiable. If they don't take, then we might go through with the d4 idea. We might just play b4 instead. We won't be down any material, and I think we'll just have much better development. This bishop never ended up moving in the game, and if it wanted to, it would take a while. There's still a couple of moves away from castling. Feels like there's a lot in favor of white, and then, yeah, this b6 square really looked appealing, and then I'll just have to see what is the most accurate here, because my only, I think, concern with this game is how much time I spent trying to find something most accurate. Rook b1, rook c1. Yeah, just trying to get things to work out. But I'll maybe just wait until the analysis board shows up. And then here as well, whether it's worth, well, I don't think it's really cashing in, but whether it's worth trying to play forcing or just slow playing even further, I think is likely a better approach overall, but we'll see. So let's take a look. And we got a clean bill of health. Awesome. Only one inaccuracy. Even them, they didn't make big mistakes. It just added up slowly by the looks of it. So bishop b5, e6 castles. This far I think is in our repertoire, and we can confirm that. So playing white against the Sicilian. This might end up being a 2e6, or yeah, 2e6 line, but we'll check with Nc6 first. Yeah, with e6 castles. And I think they played Nate d4 right away there. Yeah, Nate d4. So as far as our list of moves, it's way down there, only 2%, so not something we would ever have to be prepared for. I don't think I remember this showing up anywhere else in our repertoire, actually, this Nate d4. Maybe there's one case, because I know we do consider getting kind of blocked up in the center in one or two places, but nothing major that we are meant to consider. So, Knight d4, okay, not a terrible move, but they are, yeah, meant to play Knight e7, and then I guess I could have shown how that was supposed to go, but I think our general rule is c3, d4, and be happy with whatever center we're able to create. But they played Knight d4, so yeah, pretty sure we were going to take that, and then c3 is one good option out of several. We just don't want to leave that pawn there because it's hard to develop our last pieces. I thought maybe we could play d3 and try to develop the bishop, maybe even pawn f4 and then the knight behind it. But I think I had said my other concern was long-term, if they get something with rook c8 and this pawn could have trouble moving. Not exactly that it's a backwards pawn, but it feels a little bit like it with this pawn being left here on d4. So I was trying to get rid of that early. a6, looks like we can go in any direction, that's fine, and then queen b6 is them starting to get off track. So d3 is good to brace the center. We can and should take that, of course, and yeah, I didn't think he takes d4 could be good, and like, it's not good, it's almost +2 for white, but I guess queen takes is that much worse. So I would definitely have come back here and said e5 was not a good use of time, because if you're not playing pawn takes, I think it's just not a move you should play. So yeah, either bishop c5, developing a piece, d5, trying to do something more useful, because e5 is not a useful move, as we have discussed. Then knight c3, because this one wasn't as clear. Like, it seems we can happily give this pawn as well, and maybe it turns out quite similarly to the game. Maybe knight c4. But didn't think we had to do that yet. I'm not normally the type to sacrifice pawns, so knight c3 looks perfectly good. +3 is even kind of impressive here, but we should notice, I already talked about black not being close to castling, but 3 pieces that haven't moved yet. Whereas we're about to get all of our pieces into play. And then a3, yeah, it looks great. Yeah, it doesn't look like any of the moves here are about protecting this pawn. I guess knight a4, but how bad is rook to b1 in comparison? Still +2. Okay, so we could have done that too. But I felt like this was correct, and yeah, it just keeps getting worse. Because if they go back, well, I guess if they go back, like, they're going to keep blocking in one or both of their bishops. Like queen d6, can't push the d-pawn, so this bishop will have trouble moving. Could play b6, I suppose, but I don't know if that's all that healthy for that bishop. But they grabbed knight a4 and knight to b6, and yeah, I think I can be quite happy with the way we played this game. And then here, yeah, we just got stuck trying to find the best of good options. I know I talked about a4 and rook b1 at a bunch of different times, even queen c2, although I wasn't as happy with that because of queen c6. Then the queen goes over to the b file. Okay, because then putting a rook on c1 is a really huge threat, because whenever the queen moves, our idea is to take this bishop on c8. And it doesn't look like there's anything good here for black. Like, I'm seeing at least one line where they just give up that bishop outright. Something like queen e6, rook c1, and then... I guess not quite outright, because the queen can protect it coming back. But yeah, even something like this, they still aren't close to castling. We've won a pawn. Well, no, we haven't won a pawn. We've gotten our pawn back. But I think one of the rooks is going to come in on c8, so I can understand that being huge for white. And then let's check rook b1. What was I thinking here? I mean, I don't want to be too critical because they're fairly similar moves, and it's hard to say exactly what the advantages of one move over another is. I was not thinking something like queen c6, though, because I thought we would just be winning the bishop right away, which we are. And even then, we don't need to cash in right away. We can keep playing moves queen a4 just to improve, but this bishop can be taken for sure. So I was more thinking, I think, queen a5. Yeah, I guess just getting the rook and the queen both on the open and half-open files is the way to play this. Which we sort of did, maybe a little more slowly than I could have. But yeah, I mean, if their best moves are to give up this piece, then no, I don't think actually we can even count this as being anything worse. Like bishop takes a3, okay, I guess they're going to give up rook takes or knight takes. Either way. Give up a piece for a couple of pawns, but I don't know. I guess this could be a little confusing for how we escape with the knight, but if that's the best black has, of course, we're still happy with that. a4 looks like a great choice, but again, one of several. And yeah, as kind of anticipated, I figured that rook b1 was my retrospective move, but also just queen c2, I guess. I don't think I was really thinking about knight takes, because we're not going to take with the queen, of course. Unfortunately, there's not a mate. I mean, unless they play bishop e7, I guess. Like queen takes and rook takes. But yeah, I guess knight takes is something I wasn't ever really planning. But again, if it's still +4, we're not going to complain all that much. Queen c2 is a good choice, and then, I mean, in the game it didn't feel totally clear, but maybe we're just saying the queen doesn't have a good square. Like we saw queen a5, bishop e6, traps it, finally. That was an idea from 10 moves earlier. Oh, and I guess I can show really quickly. The other idea I'd had, not in this exact arrangement, was here. This is the fork that I was trying to set up with the bishop. If they'd had a king on d8, which they didn't, but... Okay, we come back here, so the queen has to go somewhere else. Looks like I do see at least one d4. I know I had said that. Could make a threat on a6, but not if queen d6 so much. But let's say maybe queen e7. So then we just want to play this. And if the rook can break in on b7, that should end quickly. And if queen d6, yeah, I mean, just lining up on the b file, I guess, makes a lot of sense, but not entirely obvious how to break through just yet. But I guess if their queen is tasked with pretending e5 and b7, yeah, it's going to have a problem doing that. And if it comes to c7, well, then we can come back to this and get the light square bishop in. So, okay. Another game where it's not totally clear what my big takeaway should be. I think I played a pretty good game. Black made a couple of small positional mistakes that just kept building up, I guess is what we would say. Okay, well, we will leave it there. Thanks for watching our early deviation in the Sicilian, and we'll see you for another game soon.